Let's dive into a review of The Fly 2. The Fly 2 is the 1989 sequel to David Cronenberg's iconic The Fly, 1986. Directed by Chris Wallace, the film picks up years after the tragic events of the first movie, where we follow the story of Seth Brundle's son, Martin, who is also a victim of the same genetic mutation caused by the fly experiment. The plot centers on Martin Brundle, played by Eric Stoltz, the son of Seth Brundle, who was raised in a lab after his father's death. Martin has inherited the same genetic defects that made his father's transformation into a fly so horrific. But unlike Seth, Martin's mutation progresses at a much faster rate. The film chronicles his struggle to understand what is happening to him as his body begins to undergo the same terrifying transformation his father experienced, only at a more rapid and brutal pace. The main themes of the film revolve around the dangers of unchecked scientific experimentation, genetics, and the personal horror of becoming something monstrous. Much like its predecessor, The Fly 2 explores body horror, though it's less focused on psychological terror and more on physical transformation. The grotesque nature of Martin's gradual mutation serves as a central point, showcasing the kind of disgusting, painful transformation that made the first film so memorable. In terms of characters, Martin's evolution from a confused child to a monstrous being mirrors the emotional struggle of his father. However, unlike Seth Brundle's tragic love story with Gina Davis's character, Veronica Quaife, Martin's journey is a bit different. He has a love interest in the form of Beth, Daphne Zuniga, who works at the lab and plays a key role in the plot. While there's an emotional connection between the two, the focus is less on romance and more on Martin's horrific physical changes and his desperation to stop them. Comparing The Fly 2 to its predecessor, we see some notable differences. The original Fly had a strong emphasis on the psychological aspects of Seth Brundle's transformation. It explored his descent into madness as he struggled to maintain control over his humanity. In contrast, The Fly 2 leans more into the physicality of the horror. While it still deals with the psychological aspects, it's the grotesque transformation of Martin that drives the horror. The special effects, courtesy of Wallace's team, are impressive for the time, with unsettling and often extreme body horror that makes for a gruesome experience. Whereas Cronenberg's The Fly was also a meditation on the price of scientific advancement and the cost of pushing human limits, The Fly 2 tends to focus more on the personal and familial ramifications of those experiments. Martin's search for answers and escape from the horrific fate he is bound to is more of an emotional journey, even though the film keeps its horror elements front and center. The body horror in The Fly 2 feels more overt. It's not as slow-burning as the first movie, but it's raw and intense, especially in the final act. The practical effects are top-notch for the era, with prosthetics and animatronics that bring the hideous transformation to life in excruciating detail. In conclusion, while The Fly 2 doesn't quite match the emotional depth or the groundbreaking nature of its predecessor, it stands as a worthy sequel for fans of body horror and grotesque transformation. It's a bit more direct in its approach to horror, with a heavier emphasis on physical mutation and its gory, often disturbing consequences. If you're a fan of the original Fly or 80s body horror in general, it's definitely worth checking out.